In the research that we did about you, I realized you started as a passive investor. Now, a lot of passive investors are curious, and we get a lot of emails from our viewers about how someone goes from being a passive investor to an active investor. So do they save up until they can buy, let's say, a multifamily apartment building themselves, or would they start raising capital? It's kind of unclear how most passive investors pivot to be active investors like you are today. Maybe you could tell us about your journey and how did you achieve the transition from passively investing to being an active investor, please.
Sure. So when I started, like I mentioned, I was a single family investor, and I consider myself an active investor as a single family investor because I was actually buying homes, I was rehabbing homes, I was renting them out, I was dealing with tenants, I was doing the whole 9 yards. So from being an active perspective, I didn't consider myself very passive in that role because I wasn't just using a property management and letting go. I did everything. But when I pivoted into multifamily, I went into passive because of a couple of reasons. One, of course, I didn't know anything about. I was learning how to, invest passively and just learn how to do multifamily. Multifamily is a different beast from managing a single family rental, or maybe I had 10 rentals at the time. Still different from managing a 100-unit apartment complex, right? So I joined mentoring program out of Dallas. So that was my introduction sort of to investing passively. And I realized I really didn't need a mentoring program to invest passively. But I did learn some skills there that helped me kind of transition to the active side later. So in terms of, I mean, there's this one aspect of education, to transition from passive to active, you definitely need a lot of education to understand what the active investors are actually doing with these apartments, right? That cannot be discounted. I think having a mentor is also very useful to make that transition. But I think the most important thing in my case was just not the mentor or the fact that I had that education, was the fact that I really wanted to be active. So I think when I talk to a lot of passive investors, they're happy being passive. And I was there too, because I had a busy job and I didn't want to take too much else on, right? So I think passive investments is appropriate when you like your job, you're doing what you love doing, and you want to diversify into real estate. That's a great spot to be in. But if you want to be on the active side and you want to transition from your job to doing this full time or even part time, it's quite possible to be an active investor part time. Then you do want to learn and educate yourself first. I think that's the key to it. But also just take action. I think a lot of people get into this analysis paralysis where they educate themselves, they do everything, but they find it really hard to pull the trigger, especially because there's more money involved in multifamily. So I don't know if I answered that question, but yeah.
No, that's, no, we appreciate that.